Nobody likes noise at high ISO. I discovered a technique where you can repair that pretty reliably, recover all that detail, make your pictures nice and sharp, even pictures you've already taken. Here's an example that I basically just screwed up the settings, taking a picture of this little robin eating a berry and shot it at ISO 3200. Maybe I was in a hurry, I'm not sure. But it serves as a good example because as you see, as I zoom in here, especially in the out of focus areas, you can see just tons and tons of noise there. And we can pretty much fix that. And as long as you have Photoshop, it won't cost you a thing. The first thing I'll do, I'm going to select all the pictures in a sequence. This requires that we're using continuous shutter and you clicked off a bunch of different images. It's the standard way of doing wildlife. So if you have a picture in the past that you've taken that's a really high noise, but you happen to fire off 10 shots in sequence, pull it out. Maybe you can save it and get that noise down. Right click them, edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. As that's opening, what we're going to do is use image averaging to blend these images together. Basically, instead of taking an image at ISO 3200, if I combine two of those, I'd have the same amount of light as one image taken at ISO 1600. If I combine 4 images at ISO 3200, that would get me down to an equivalent ISO 800. So I have 6 images. That means my final result will be more like if I'd shot at ISO 600 than ISO 3200. It should be a much cleaner and usable image. Now, image averaging means that any sort of movement between the different pictures is going to show up as weird ghosting. And I'll show you how to fix that at the end, giving you basically a near perfect, certainly a much better result. If you're the type who regularly takes multiple pictures, then this is going to be tremendously useful to you. If you're not, you might keep this technique in mind and hold down that shutter, especially when you're shooting in low light. Take 10, 20, 30 pictures so that you can blend them together and get perfectly clean images. If you find that you took 10 pictures and some of them have motion blur, some of them are out of focus or whatever, pick only the good pictures and blend those together. So you don't have to use all your pictures. So now all the layers here are open in Photoshop and they're stacked. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select them all. Then I'm going to go to Edit and do Auto Align Layers. Because I was hand holding it, the camera moved a little bit between frames. So now Photoshop is going to look at those and make sure that they're all lined up. We'll give that just a second to work. So now all the images are lined up. And if I zoom back here a little bit, you can see the edges get a little weird up here where not all of the pictures overlapped, but that's okay. Now we need to convert it to a smart object. So we're going to go to Layer, Smart Objects, Convert to Smart Object. Now that it's a smart object, I'm going to go to Layer, Smart Objects, Stack Mode, and Mean, which is another word for average. Now it's going to average all those layers together. So there you can see the bird seems to be hopping around a little bit. As I zoom in though, look what we have here. Just this background here, I'll zoom all the way into 1:1, Control-Alt-0. So look at the noise that we see in these leaves back here. This is the old image taken at ISO 3200. This is the new one. And it goes beyond just noise reduction because it will actually be recovering detail. So now that we have this, the next thing we have to tackle is getting rid of this weird motion. So what we're going to do is, there are a few different ways to do this, and I could have planned ahead and not blended all the different layers together, but I didn't do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this out, get it back into Lightroom, and in Lightroom, I'm just going to pick the picture here that I like the best. This one looks nice and sharp. So I'm going to take that one and this one, and I'm going to open it back up as layers. I'm going to select them both. And again, I'm going to auto align those 2 layers. Now what I'm going to do is move my stacked image, the TIFF, to the top of it, and then create a layer mask for it. The layer mask, any part of the layer mask that's white makes that layer visible. Any part of it that's black allows lower layers to shine through. So I'm going to use my brush tool here. I'm going to make it black by switching this and make it a little bit bigger. So now any place that I paint, I have a nice big soft brush. Any place that I paint, it's going to show that single image instead of the blended image. So I want to take away just as little as possible because that single image is going to have more noise, but it's also not going to have that weird sort of motion into it. And if I overpaint it all, I can hit X to switch my brush back to white and go back in and just paint part of this over it. Great. So now if I hit Control-Alt-0 to zoom into 1:1, we can see I have a bird with absolutely no ghosting, lots of great detail, nice and sharp, and the background has far less noise in it than it did before. You can see because I used a big brush to blend them in, there are some areas here around the main subject that still show lots of noise, but I can go in and kind of paint a little more closely, a little more carefully. Oh, I got the beak from one of them. Not too bad. It didn't take long at all, and it drastically reduced the noise in the image. A lot of people spend thousands of dollars to upgrade to a full frame camera in the hopes of reducing noise. Here's a technique that you can use with your Creative Cloud subscription that won't cost you an extra penny and will get you so much more value out of both your old images and your new images. The other day, I took a bunch of pictures of a lighthouse at night, and because the moon was in it and the moon was moving, I had no choice but to shoot at ISO 3200. But the picture turned out great, and I wanted to make a huge print out of it. What I had to do to make a good printable image was to use this image stacking technique, but then blend a single image of the moon back in so that the moon didn't look all stretchy and movie. Thanks so much. Subscribe for more free tips. And of course, check out my books on Lightroom and Photoshop by searching for Tony Northrup at Amazon or visiting sdp.io/store. Subscribe for more free videos, and any questions, ask in the comments below. Bye. Thanks.